Okay, welcome to today's meeting of the Children and Families Overview and Scrutiny Committee. As usual, the meeting is being broadcast live via the County Council's website, and it will also be available for viewing after the meeting. Please note that some officers who are presenting reports will be joining the meeting virtually. Can I please ask that all members and officers have their microphones on mute until they wish or are invited to speak. My name is Mr. Smith, and I'll be chairing the committee today as Mrs. Fryer has given apologies and Mrs. Page will be substituting. I've also received apologies from Mr. Hills, Mr. Welsh, Canon Caroline Lewis. Can I now ask members to introduce themselves?
Good afternoon, members. My name is Councillor Mark Frisby, representing Melton Mowbray West. Thank you.
Mr. Robert Martin, Parent Governor Representative.
Betty Newton, Loughborough North.
Good afternoon, Rosita Page, substituting for Hilary Fryer.
Sharon.
Sorry, but you just wanted members. Sorry, Sharon Cook, Assistant Director at Targeted Early Help and Children's Social Care.
Thank you. Jane Moore, Director of Children and Family Services.
Deborah Taylor, Lead Member for Children and Families.
Joanne Toomey, Democratic.
Damien Buckley, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you very much, everyone. So on to item number 1, minutes of the last meeting held on the 25th of January 2022. I propose that the minutes of the meeting are held on 25th of January 22 are taken as read, confirmed and signed. Are we all in agreement? Thank you. Item number 2, question time. I've received a question from Mrs. Sue Whiting, who is present at the meeting. The question and its response have been circulated to members of the committee prior to the start of the meeting and will be taken as read. I would like to remind members that no discussion is to be held on these. I will now invite Mrs. Whiting to ask a supplementary question if you have one. I would remind you that your supplementary question should clarify the reply that you have been given and should not raise any new issues. That's it. Take the seat.
Thank you, Chair, for the response. And to clarify the answers given, would it be possible to state how the event at Leicestershire Dyslexia Association 16th of March was shared with Senko's and which members of the department? And here I don't necessarily need names, ranks, you know, the office rank would be absolutely fine. And which members of the department have attended events at the LDA since September 2021? And that's A. And B, who has signed up to attend the BDA Virtual Literacy Conference on Thursday, 17th of March, and which parts of the day? Also, which commercial exhibitors who attend NEC shows have you had sessions with? So that where it's an officer or anything, I'm quite happy with the title, not the actual person. But it would be useful to know which commercial exhibitors you've been dealing with.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll now ask officers if they want to respond. Jane.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in response to the first question, the information was sent out to Senko's directly. I'm assuming we communicate via email, but it's our usual direct channels through to Senko's across Leicestershire. The members of staff that attended the LDA events and have attended the LDA events since September are members of the Specialist Teaching Service. In terms of the attendance at the BDA Virtual Literacy Conference, it's members of the Specialist Teaching Service who have signed up to attend that conference, and they are attending the whole day. In terms of the commercial exhibitors, I won't give detail of the names. They are predominantly private companies or commercial. However, again, it is members of the Specialist Teaching Service who've met with a whole range of exhibitors who attend the show. And this is obviously alongside meeting other providers throughout the course of the year, where we explore various products and resources that could support our children across Leicestershire.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Mrs. Whiting. Does that answer everything? No problem. You're welcome to stay or leave if you wish. Okay, on to item number 3, question asked by members under Standing Orders 7(3) and 7(5). I've not received any question from members. Item number 4, to advise of any other items that the chairman has decided to take as urgent elsewhere on the agenda. I have not been notified of any other urgent items. Item number 5, declarations of interest in respect of items on the agenda. Does any member have any interest they wish to declare? No? Okay. Item number 6, declarations of party whip in accordance with the overview and scrutiny procedure rule 16. Do members have any declarations from our group? No. And item number 7, presentation of petitions under Standing Order 36. There are no petitions. We now move on to the main agenda items, and as with all the following items, can I please ask members to allow officers to present their report before asking questions. Item number 8. The first item on today's agenda is the Q3 21-22 performance report. Sharon Cook, Assistant Director, Targeted Early Help and Children's Social Care, and Paula Sumner, Assistant Director, Education and SEND, will present the item.
Thank you, Chair. If I start and I'll hand over to Paula for the second part of the report. Members have hopefully had a chance to read the detailed report that's prepared that shows the department's performance for the period up until December 21, which was Q3. I don't propose to go through all the detail that's in the report. I hope that members have had a chance to read the detail and acknowledge where there is some good and continuing good performance across the service. For my part of the report, I would just draw members' attention to 2 points, which are areas that we are continuing to work on around our performance, and to provide some explanation for those. So in section 9, it talks about repeat child protection planning for children, and that our percentage of children subject to repeat plans remains higher than we would want it to. To give some reassurance to members, we complete a lot of detailed deep dives into any child where there is a subsequent child protection plan, to understand the circumstances around that child's life, and also to understand if there's any learning and anything different that can be done. In the main, most children who are subject to a period of planning, child protection planning more than once, tend to be those children who are living in families where there are concerns around domestic abuse, parental substance misuse, and parental mental health. And those 3 factors, I'm sure members will understand, can cause periods of time and periods of stress for families. We continue to work and look at our systems and our services to ensure the timely planning for those children. And I would draw your attention to the fact that during the pandemic, we have seen nationally and regionally an increase in numbers of children with repeat planning, which probably is no surprise, because for periods of time, those families and children who are living in quite chaotic and difficult circumstances haven't always during that period had access to all the services, not just children's social services, but other universal services. But just to reassure that this is an area of focus for the service. And secondly, around the health of children in care, work is being undertaken with our colleagues in health due to some pressures around availability of health practitioners. There has been a real challenge about the timeliness of some review health assessments for children in care. But again, it's a focus of work that we're undertaking with colleagues in health to ensure our children receive timely health assessments. So the other data in relation to targeted early help and children's social care shows a positive picture, and unless there were particular questions on those areas, I've taken it that members have had a chance to read the report, and I'll hand over to Paula, who may want to add some comments about education. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Just again, have taken the report as read, but a couple of areas just to draw members' attention, specific attention to, please. So just on page 15, paragraph 21, where we refer to the volume of education, health and care plans. Whilst we've experienced a slight decrease in the number compared with, in autumn compared with summer 21, the trajectory of increasing demand is still an area that we're focusing on. And equally, we do have slightly less children on SEN support than previously, but they are still our highest reported figures since the introduction of the Code of Practice. Positive news with regards to the take-up of fee, now that we are resuming some business as usual almost, and our take-up is improving kind of month on month really, so that's positive news. We are still monitoring the volume of children electively home educated, and the Association of Directors of Children's Services, who complete an annual survey, it is monitoring that as well at that level, and we are seeing a kind of national increase on that. So it is an area, we are in line with national averages, but an area that we are very closely monitoring. Again, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the report and the summary as well. Got a couple of questions. First of all, Mr. Frisbee, and then we'll come on to Mrs. Newton.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chair, and thank you very much for that, Paula and Sharon. I just want to go back against fear of reiteration, really, and go back to paragraph 9 of page 14. Indeed, it was agreed by members that some of those figures were quite stark and quite alarming. I suppose what we're asking really, firstly, if we could have point 1 really is some clarity around the repeat planning, the terms of reference of exactly what that means and where that goes. And secondly, what does good look like? What's the roadmap of improvement? What's the tangible deliverables that we're working to reduce some of these slightly alarming figures? Thank you, officers.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to the second question first, we would, if we compare ourselves to outstanding shires, and that's what we would want to do, their rates currently are around 22-23% of repeat plans. So that would be a target if we were to set, that's the type of target that we would be looking at. I say that with some slight reservation because those figures we know from working with our colleagues in the East Midlands that all authorities have seen an increase. So the figure of the 22% is based on last year's figures, but that's a target that we are working to. And sorry, the first question was.
Sorry, the first question was. What does good look like in terms of distance travelled and assurances of improvement? What are we actually doing practically to improve those figures? Thank you.
Sorry, our safeguarding unit complete an audit of all children where there is a second or subsequent child protection plan. Most of those children have a plan that is more, that the previous plan was more than 2 years ago. Obviously, we wouldn't want any child to have a second period of child protection planning, but that period of time does show that in the main, these are not children that are going on to child protection plans, off child protection plans and back on. There is quite a period of time. The complexities that I described around domestic abuse, parental substance abuse and parental mental health are risk factors where families can have periods of time where there is some stability and there is some improvement and there's some progress. So we are mindful. We've strengthened our work in the service around working with victims and children where domestic abuse is a particular risk factor. We've also done a lot of work around supporting and strengthening children in need planning to make sure that children aren't being escalated to a child protection plan when actually a robust child in need plan and the agencies working together at that level would actually be the most beneficial way to support that child and family. I did reference the impact of the pandemic, and during that time when some universal services weren't quite as accessible or were under some pressure due to the pandemic, we did notice that agencies were more reluctant to manage some levels of risk at child in need level. But we've done a lot of work with partner agencies around those child in need plans, and we've made sure that our systems and processes around that decision making for children going to a conference are stronger. We've also strengthened the plan that would be agreed at the conference that stepped down a child from a child protection plan to make sure that's a sustainable plan and less likely then to break down and come back at a later stage.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Sharon. That's partially reassuring. I suppose what I'm asking, my final question, if I may, before we move on, is just around working practices. Really, it'd be useful for members to understand from a pragmatic, tangible perspective what's actually happening. What are the workshops? What activities are we actually carrying out to try and reduce some of these escalating figures? Thank you.
Okay, so a lot of the work is about workshops and training with our staff to ensure confidence around child in need planning and to make sure that children that can be and families that can be supported at that level are done so robustly. And secondly, the work that we're doing around domestic abuse in particular that is helping at all levels across our children and family wellbeing service and children's social care to actually work and understand that work with families, including work with perpetrators of domestic abuse. What we know from research and working with universities and researchers is that often for families where domestic abuse is a risk element, there are a few families where that level of risk is so great and so high that it wouldn't be safe for the children to remain living within that family environment as it stands. But for some families, actually what they want is not to separate. What they want is an opportunity to be able to address the pressures and the difficulties and the understanding around their relationships to minimise that domestic abuse. So we as a department and also with partner agencies have been undertaking a lot of training based on that research. We've strengthened our services at the police station around domestic abuse. We've put in resources from children and family wellbeing so that those families at the lower end around domestic abuse can get support and be linked into our support services early. And we've actually done some work, piloted some work, working with perpetrators and seen some very positive signs of how we've been able to work with those individuals to improve their home situation and to de-escalate the situation and prevent further domestic abuse. So our focus has been not just looking at figures and what can we do about the figures, but really understanding the difficulties and the risks behind those figures and understanding what that means for practice.
Thank you for that, Sharon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mrs. Newton. Mrs. Newton, can you just turn your microphone on?
Put it on. Sorry, my fault. I hadn't put it on correctly. It's really about those children with child protection plans, and they're in the lower quartile. And I just wondered, what more can we do, or are we confident that we can increase this to a higher quartile? Because it's very important, especially during these COVID times as well, that these child protection plans, that they need to go up further in terms of performance and what we're doing. It's agenda item 8.
You want to reply, Sharon?
Yes, yeah. The percentage of, so if I've just make sure I've understood you correctly, so it's about the percentage of child protection cases that are reviewed within time scale. Oh, sorry, I thought you said 0.8. Apologies. Yeah, it's 0.9, so it's around the repeat child no, oh, sorry. It's around the repeat child protection planning. So hopefully the information that I've provided around the detailed work that the service is doing will see that figure decrease, which then puts the authority in a higher quartile.
Thank you for that. Robert, you also had a question?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. As a parent governor, I really commend the local authority and the schools for the excellent results around primary schools, showing continued improvement. I think that's really good. Just a quick question on what are we doing about the secondary schools to try and increase them and close that gap so they're just as good as our excellent primary schools. Thank you.
Jane, do you want to come back on that one?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I can pick that up. Yes, you're right. I mean, I think the performance around the admissions this year has been, again, good. The secondary rates around admissions aren't traditionally as good as primaries. And I think one of the challenges that we do have within the secondary system particularly is that many of the schools are academy.
Are there any more questions before we move on? No. Okay, so on to item number 9, which is a report on the young carers. Sharon Cook will present the item and will be joined by Carly Turner, Service Manager in the Children and Families Wellbeing Service.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I am just going to introduce the report and hand over to Carly, who's the Service Manager for the young carers, and has presented a lot of the detail, prepared it for the report. So I'll hand over to Carly.
Thank you, Sharon. Good afternoon, everyone. I've submitted quite a comprehensive report in terms of the overview of young carers, and hopefully members have had a chance to read that full report, and I'll just pull out the salient points. In terms of paragraphs 2 to 10, I really wanted to set the context around young carers in terms of our statutory responsibility as a local authority and some of the challenges that are both nationally and locally around identifying young carers and what we know about the impact of the pandemic. In paragraph 11 to 13, I've taken the opportunity to describe the collaborative work that we've done with Barnardo's to transfer the service that was commissioned to them back to the responsibility of the local authority as of the 1st of April 2021, which also included the transfer of 2 staff and has enabled us to create a small young carers project. Paragraph 14 to 28 really is on the focus of what the offer is from the local authority, and that talks about what we do when we assess young carers, opportunities around group work, and some really exciting opportunities around partnership events such as an activity camp that we're doing in collaboration with Loughborough University, which is 5 days of our young carers going out into the Peak District, and they're really excited about that. We've been focused really on developing our offer for young carers around transition. So that's from the ages of 15 onwards, because we recognise that a number of young carers will resist taking up opportunities for university or further education because of their caring responsibilities. And so we start that work at the age of 15 so we can help them plan and work with potentially adult social care and family networks about what that support can be. We really committed as part of the project and the department at focusing on supporting our young carers really to realise their ambition. It's quite often lost in all of the caring responsibilities, and they become kind of their own needs and desires become second to that of caring for their loved ones. And so really the purpose of all that, the work that we do, is to encourage them to engage in what their future would look like and how we can support them to do that. Paragraph 29 and the appendix really identify some of the voice from our children, identify a case study that we've done, that we've completed, so that you can understand the assessment process and the work that we do as part of the project. And then whilst I didn't include this in the report, I do just want to acknowledge our young carers who, within the Youth and Justice Service, some of them come onto our recruitment panels and interview staff members, so potential staff members set up their own questions and really support us in recruitment and integrity, where young people's voice, and particularly our young carers' voice, is paramount to that. So that's just an overview of my report, Chair.
Thank you very much. It was a really good report to read, actually, and quite interesting to find how young some of these carers are. So well done for the fantastic work that you guys do, along with the fantastic work that the carers do as well. I know Mrs. Newton has a question. Microphone.
I'd like to declare an interest. You mentioned Loughborough Young Carers research group. I used to be part of that, so I'm no longer part of it, so I don't know if that needs to be taken on board. I would just want to thank you for all the work that has been done, because young carers really are the hidden face of community care, and especially during this time of pandemic, we don't seem to realise that actually they're even more hidden, because quite often they don't go to school and they don't have interaction with their own peers, etc. So it's a very, very lonely job. I remember when I did my research, speaking to a 5-year-old that was caring for her mother and 2 twins of 3. I was down in Southwark. That was quite shocking, but once they got help, that helped the family. But really, in this time, I really am worried about an impact on their health, including their mental health, because with them not really having the support networks that should be there, and some of them would be there in normal times. Are we confident that we're doing enough for them, and are we confident that they are coming forward to say to you, these are our needs, can you help us meet their needs, and make sure that we actually put in the proper support package to meet those needs. But well done for the work that you're already doing. Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of answering the question, I guess it's quite a challenging one, isn't it? Because we can be confident that we're doing that with the young carers that we're working with and that are identified, but we know that there's a significant proportion of young carers that aren't identified and actually don't want to be identified. So every school across Leicestershire should have a young carers champion, and we are reliant on schools identifying. So I guess where there's a significant there's a significant impact on education, we would have a safety blanket of our inclusion service that would be picking those children up and then referring on to us. Schools are generally quite proactive at referring children, and a lot of the work that we do with schools with little resistance is about advocating for the school to understand more of what's going on at home. And we operate a lot of opportunities for group work, which is really about respite for young carers. It's not coming to learn life skills like some of our other groups. It's young carers coming, being young carers, engaging with each other, creating friendships and having fun, and they're absolutely beautiful groups to go along to, and lots of them form ongoing friendships. So I guess the challenge is I can feel really confident in terms of the children that we're working with. It's just getting to grips with the children that don't want to be identified and those that actually that aren't identified, and that's part of now we've brought the service in-house, we're much more able to kind of look at our comms plan with the community, with our comms team, and we're able to kind of target particular areas that we want to in relation to that.
Thank you. If I can just come back on that one as well, when you're talking about your comms and obviously the suite of things that you're going to be presented to them, how can we actually incentivize them to want some help? Because that's the big thing, is it? It's okay identifying these kids, but if they don't want to actually take that help on board, is there any incentives that we can give them to take more help?
I think that's a good point. I think that's something we can take away and work through in terms of our next part of the plan. I think that's something we would need to take away and look at, but it's an opportunity to incentivise. I mean, we do a lot of positive activities with those children. So obviously pre-pandemic, we did lots of days out. We've taken children to theme parks where they've never been before. And so there are incentives, but we perhaps could look differently at whether we can incentivise in terms of identification and not just those children that are engaged within our service.
That's great. Thank you. Robert, you had one?
Wanted to quickly come back because from my experience as well, I think young carers are very frankly coming forward and saying this is what we do, and one of the fears of coming forward is they're frightened of being taken into care. So it's that whole trust element, and I just wanted to ensure that we're confident that we're doing enough to actually instill in young carers that they can feel free to say what their needs are and what help they need, and that they're not going to be taken away from their family. I think that's very important. Thank you.
Robert.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I've got quite a few points to make, but a lot of them are picking up on the points that have already been made. You mentioned about the carers under 8, I think it was the 3-year-old and the 2 5-year-olds. 1 in 8, according to the Bernardo's report, are under 8. What is our offer for under 8s? Another point about, do we feel like we're getting enough? I sort of extrapolated the census data in the Bernardo's report to say that, we have about over 1,000 young carers in Leicestershire and we've picked up 28. Do we feel that is enough? And it's obviously through the discussion with the chair that we are wanting to do more. So I'd like to ask a question on whether you feel that is enough. And to do with the collaboration, the Bernardo's report specifically states that referrals regularly come from schools and other agencies other than social care. You said there's a schools champion within each school. Is each teacher specifically trained themselves to be able to write these reports or know where to refer into? That'd be my sort of second point. And finally, it sort of links in with the point about fear of being taken away. I was reading the report that you wrote, and it says, I wanted to ask about the whole family approach to assessment. A lot of families can be quite apprehensive about social services assessments, as you may understand, and I speak to a lot of parents in my role as a parent governor. I would just like to clear something up so I can take it back to parents who have said these sort of things. It's clear in the laws there are different requirements of the local authority when assessing needs of different cohorts of people and children. Can you confirm that the two people that are doing the assessments on the young carers aren't doing the sort of Section 20 Children Act assessment, which is sort of not what the Children and Families Act says about young carers, and it is a more of a person-centred approach. Thank you.
Yeah, if I take the issue on the assessment and then Carly can come in with some of the details, just to reassure you, a Section 20 assessment, which, as I'm sure you're aware, is where a family or an older young person can have asked the local authority to look after them. That assessment is a more detailed assessment than what would be our initial children and families assessment that we would do with any child. We never go into every situation doing an assessment thinking that a family or a young person could be asking us to look after them. Obviously, if part of the assessment identifies that, then we would move on to that. But I just wanted to pick up the point and give reassurance about the assessment process, and give Carly a chance to answer any of the other questions about services.
Thank you, Sharon. So in terms of the questions, so the first question was, what's the offer for under 8s? We're just working on whether we need to have a group work offer for under 8s at the moment, or whether the response that we've got in place, which is whole family work, is right for them. And we're also looking at whether there's a pathway into universal services, so such as brownies, guides, and anything like that, that would really bolster those children in their communities. I think we quite often think about bringing children into our services when there's actually lots of provision out there. So that pathway for children that are 10 and under is in development in terms of what's going on in the community, but those children would come through our front door and then into the children and family wellbeing service where there wasn't a safeguarding issue, and we would look at that and seek a response within that approach. But it is an area of development for us. In terms of the question, do that we feel that we've done enough to identify young carers? I don't think we could probably, at any local authority or anywhere, could say that they've ever done enough to identify young carers, and I think it will always remain a challenge, but we are committed. The pandemic obviously caused us some issues with those young carers, and we maintained the young carers that are open to us at the moment and the impact of that on them. We did take some referrals for some new young carers during that time. That went through to Bernardo's as well, but we are working with comms to raise that the communications. We want to work with schools, we want to work wider than that, but we need to do that in a planned and methodical way. So the question is, we want to do more than we do at the moment, and part of that is bringing the service across, and also kind of recovery from the pandemic as well, and being realistic about what we can achieve with the size of the project that we've got. And in terms of schools, I couldn't comment on whether every teacher is trained in relation to young carers, but we take every opportunity to know that schools have got a young carers lead, and we take opportunities through the dedicated head teachers briefings to share information with schools that schools then should be cascading through to their into their kind of establishment. So but I couldn't say about each teacher being trained to identify young carers.
Thank you for that, Carly. Mrs. Taylor, you're looking at it.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back briefly on your point there about ensuring that young carers do engage with us. I think it's about working with the whole family. Obviously, with adults that are receiving care from young carers, they're obviously going to be really anxious that they're not going to receive the care that they need. And then obviously, you know, there's already been raised that the young carers are scared they're going to be took away from their family. So I think it's a whole family approach that we come from to make sure that everyone's assured that we're there for them. And it's about building that relationship with those families and young carers and understanding their needs and wishes, because not every single family is exactly the same. So I think it's just the way we work with families. And just coming back to points that probably already been made, but about the unknown children that we're concerned about, we can only work with the children that we know about. And as Carly said, we work really hard with the young carers that we do know about, but it is a concern to all of us about the children we don't know about. I think it's down to all of us and the partners that we work with, the schools, the police, and us as the eyes and ears of community, to make sure that if we have got concerned about any family, that there might be a young carer there, that make sure that that information is passed over to us so we can start to engage with that family. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mrs. Newton, want to come back?
I think it's important also to recognise parents are sometimes, they can be ashamed of their children caring for them. So often there is a denial there that they're actually being cared for by their children. So I think we need to be extremely careful with that situation as well, that parents say, oh, no, my child's not doing the caring, when they actually are. So I think we need to be a bit more astute when we go in to ensure that we're asking the right questions in terms of who's actually looking after whom. Thank you.
Robert.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think that's what my previous question was about. The Children and Families Act is brilliant in that sense that it directly states that you're dealing with the carer and their needs and the caregiver, and maybe not quite the whole family-centred approach as what the other laws state for other types of assessment. But I completely agree with what the councillor says, and again, just want to thank the young carers and yourself for the report.
Jane, do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to add to that, and thank you. I think the other bit I just want to add and share is that we need to acknowledge that there are many occasions where children don't recognise that they're young carers as well, and that actually our job as both the County Council and, as Mrs Taylor said, other partners, is helping children understand that, but also really understanding what their needs are within that as well. I think the points, you're right around the whole family support, and I guess from our position in terms of the Children and Families Department, we would want to know that children are being supported effectively, and if that means that the family could do with some additional support, then that in turn would help the child. So I think that whole family look is really important in terms of the role of the child in the family, how we can support the family to be to have the services and support they need that will enable that child then to be able to engage with education and all the others. But we need to remember this is a preventive approach we're taking. This is about looking at the child and the needs of the child and how we can best support the child. And there will be times that it's identified that a whole family approach is needed or additional support's needed. There are times when it's about how we can give that child time out of the home and additional support. I think what Carly's presented and what the report sets out is a kind of range of support that we are able to deliver. I think one of the key challenges for all of us, and certainly not just the department, is how we not only identify these young people, but enable those young people to understand that role as well. But I think that's a collective responsibility that we have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. If there's no more comments, we'll move on to item number 10, which is the report on the written statement of action. And Paula Sumner, Assistant Director of Education and SEND, will present this item.
Thank you very much, Chair. Once again, we'll take it the report as written, but just to pull out some of the key, as read, some of the key points. You will know that we were inspected in February 2022. The two areas of improvement that were identified by the Care Quality Commission and Ofsted were the absence of a clearly defined joint commissioning strategy for SEND provision, and the quality of education, health and care plans, and the lack of a formal quality assurance framework to help improve those plans. Just to highlight that through the various formal monitoring meetings with the DfE, we can report good progress against the written statement of action, with 100% of those actions in the plan now underway, and that is compared to 87.8% when we previously reported to the DfE in October of 2021. There are several actions within the plan that have some minor delays, but there are no concerns that we won't deliver on those in advance of our re-inspection. To further support our continuous improvement journey, we invited in a peer challenge last year, and that that was undertaken by a lead peer challenger and a number of colleagues from across the region. And the findings from that are highlighted at paragraph 17, page 33 and 34. So they've commented, as you can see, on the presence now of our joint commissioning strategy, and there are examples of good joint commissioning work, particularly around the key worker programme that we're working with the clinical commissioning group on. And some challenges around provision of staffing, particularly in relation to the designated clinical officer. But since this paper was drafted, somebody has been posted on an interim basis to that post, along with additional support from a SEND facilitator as well. So that's positive news. So the findings from the peer challenge were very much in line with our own assessment of ourselves, and a report of very good progress. And just a couple of points that have happened in recent times. It's literally in the last week or so since the report was written. We've in relation to the quality of education healthcare plans, we've secured additional support and resource around the quality assurance process so that we can audit and assure ourselves of improvement in the quality of plans. As I mentioned, we've recently strengthened the DCO role, as well as the designated social care officer post as well. We've further strengthened that. In the SENA service, we have last week appointed to all vacancies within the team, which is excellent news, and have secured some additional resource to clear some of the backlog of work that was stacking up as a response to those vacancies, meaning that our staff in the substantive teams have smaller caseloads, so that is helping us to attract staff to the local authority area, and helping with our retention of staff as well. So just wanted to draw attention to those particular points as well. Happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the update as well. Robert, you first.
Thank you very much for the report. Just a very quick question. I'm really pleased that 100% of the actions are underway. I think that's really positive. But given the deadlines on the written statements of action, how many of them have been completed?
Yeah, I'll come back, Chair, if that's okay. We're around about 80% of the actions completed, but we continue to review even when we've completed to make sure that there isn't more that we can do on each of those areas. So we're very much well on track to complete all 100% by the time we will have our re-inspection, which is kind of imminent, really.
Thank you. Mrs. Newton?
In a sense, I think you've asked the question I was going to ask, but I just thought also I'd like to ask a question around staff stability. What can we do to increase staff stability? Because I think that's very important with ongoing policies. Thank you.
You happy for me to respond to that, Chair?
Yeah, go back.
Thank you. Just as briefly alluded to, we have just recently appointed to a number of vacancies. We've had a significant restructure in the SENA service, and you're absolutely right. The stability and continuity for families is critical. I think that the volume of case loads for case workers within the SENA service is one of the reasons people tell us that they are often challenged, and so we've been able to secure some additional resource to clear some of the backlog of work that's stacked up so that the caseloads are more manageable. We've also implemented a new IT system, which literally went live yesterday, which has been in the kind of development stages for quite some time. So that's really positive news, and it means that the recording and management of cases is much more efficient for colleagues, and that was another one of the things that staff told us was kind of a challenge for them. and we've developed a new induction programme and workforce development plan for staff within the centre service, and that is being reported as very positive. So we're hoping that that will have an impact on the retention of staff within the service. And we've also put some new leadership in there as well, which is again having some early indications of a positive move for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? No. Okay, we'll move on to the final item today then, which is the report on the outcome of the Ofsted Focus visit in January 2022. And Jane Moore, Director, is going to deliver the report.
Thank you, Chair. So the report sets out for you the outcome of our recent Ofsted Focus visit. We received a call from Ofsted on the 19th of January, which gave us notice of the focus visit around children in need of help and protection, and they were due to commence that inspection and did commence that inspection on the 24th of January. This inspection was part of the Ofsted framework for local authority inspection, and members will recall that we were last visited for a full inspection back in 2019, where we were judged to be requiring improvement to be good. So we received the letter on the 2nd of March, and we've attached the full letter for members to read, and I'll just pull out some of the key areas that they identified. So the report was very positive, and it reported very positively on the progress that has been made across the service on the quality of service provided to those children who are in need of help and protection. The inspectors did report that the senior leadership team understands the service well, and that there'd been a strong and committed focus to build on the progress since the last inspection. Ofsted did also recognise the commitment investment by political and corporate leaders, and alongside that effective work by staff across the organisation that has led to improvements across the service. There were a number of particular strengths that were identified in the report. Some of them were particularly around children being at the centre of decision making, that our social workers know their children well, that all children receive a timely and proportionate social work response that manages their risk and their needs. They reported that social workers like working in Leicestershire and they're well motivated and feel supported by their managers. And they also commented on our steady pace of improvement despite the challenges of COVID-19, and commented on the good understanding of senior leaders around our frontline practice through various mechanisms that they outlined. The inspectors did identify two key areas for improvement, so they wanted to see a greater consistency in the quality of children's plans, and they also wanted to see more consistency in how we recorded the supervisions, so the meetings between staff and their managers, to make sure that it fully reflected what went on in the meetings and how it was leading to progress for children. These two areas were areas that were already identified as part of our continuous improvement plan, and we've been working on those areas since the last inspection. So if I may, Chair, I did want to just use this opportunity to say that we are really proud of the report, and I am particularly proud of the staff across the department for their hard work and that unwavering focus on children, and also to thank our frontline staff, our support staff and our managers for that focus on improvement and really getting it right for children, and also to Sharon, the Assistant Director for this area, and her senior leaders who really have led a very strong and steady drive around continuous improvement that's set out in this letter. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for your report. Just congratulations really to you and the entire team. Fantastic report and something to be celebrated, especially in the light of the last 2 years. What you've been able to achieve is remarkable, so well done. Is any questions from the floor? Comments? No?
Just excellent. In times of challenges, I think the Ofsted outcome is exceptionally good, and you should be very proud. And thank you to the members and associates who put that together. That's quite an achievement. Thank you.
Mrs. Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to echo Jane's word and a big thank you to all the staff. But I think I need to pay tribute to Jane and her assistant directors as well for their really strong leadership. Without that strong leadership, the staff wouldn't be where we are. So just want to put on record my thanks to Jane and all her team for where we are. But I'm very, very proud of everyone that what we've achieved, especially during the COVID pandemic. And I'm sort of looking forward to our full inspection, because I think we'll be outstanding or good on a way to outstanding. So I'm really hopeful for moving forward. But I think the main thing from us was seeing the voice of children. The inspectors really picked up on the voice of the child, which is what focuses all our work is within the department. So that was really pleasing that was demonstrated really well. So just well done to everyone. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, item number 12, date of next meeting. The next meeting of the committee is scheduled to take place on the 7th of June 2022. Item 13, any other items of which the chairman has decided to take as urgent. There are no urgent items. Thank you for attending today's meeting. I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.